want to kind of get your thoughts on like what you exactly mean by this. You said Steve Yzerman has built this Red Wings roster into a sleeping giant. Can you clarify that a little bit further?
Yeah,
elaborate.
You look at what we're doing so far on this team. We talked about it before. They have the most people in the NHL with double-digit goals on the same team. They have Patrick Kane, who's sitting at 9, just to add to that total. And then they have the best farm system in the NHL. When you look at the forwards with Kasper, Mazur, Soderblom, Lombardi, Danielson, all of those guys on top of the defensemen of obviously Evanson, Johansson, Wallander, Palinka, and then you've got Trey Augustine and Kosa waiting in the wings of goaltender. Like, this is what he did with Tampa, about how you just build this team from top to bottom of guys that are good, guys that play hard, contend, can score, and do everything. And right now he's got it with all the guys that he brought in, the different guys he signed, like a Compher, a Daniel Sprong, and obviously a DeBrincat and a Kane. But going forward, you have that oomph and all of that talent in your farm system of guys who are chomping at the bit, ready to make things happen.
Yeah, and that was very well put, and I'm glad that you said that, because I would agree with pretty much everything you said. And one of the pieces of evidence of that is that the Red Wings, they are in a very, very good position to make the playoffs this season, which would make the season a rousing success. Darren McCarty, do you echo Spenny's sentiments that Steve Yzerman has built this Red Wings team into a sleeping giant?
Well, let's just talk about it, right? Let's just talk about, and where do you want to go? Let's just go even before this season, right? How many positions, and I'll even take it after the DeBrincat trade. Where were we talking what this team needed after the DeBrincat trade, right? Whereas the fact you were still saying, well, we don't know about our goal scoring, JT Compher, he's supposed to add something, but he's more of a shutdown guy. Obviously, Andrew Kopp coming in, we expect more from him coming off the season that he had. But there's still questions about scoring to this team, right? Now, we knew that, was it going to be younger guys? Was Edmondson going to be able to jump up? Was it some of these young guys that were going to, break the roster, stuff like this? Bottom line, you always knew that you don't have your goal yet. I've said it all along. Go back 2-3 years. The final piece to this puzzle is when Steve Yzerman, lays his sword down that this is your guy, and you'll know when that happens. But I'm looking at this roster, and I'm going from bottom to top, right? The guys you've added. And what do I see? Okay, not only Spenny, which I mentioned it yesterday, the fact that you have double-digit guys in scoring, which means you're probably going to have, looking at this, 5 or 6 guys hit 20 goals, which is huge for balance. Plus, you're going to have another 4 or 5 that are over 10, which is huge for balance. But I look at this, and other than Klim Kostin, who's played 32 games and played that physical role, who's got 3 goals and whatever, but he has a presence. Can we agree? Kostin has presented a presence to this team, that they didn't have before, Spenny, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Justin Hall, if there's a disappointment out there as far as for the money and everything else, but, sitting there. But, no, you got Oli Mata, who is sitting there, and forget his points, he's plus 13. Christian Fischer, these guys are the least in points with 12 and 13, but they're double digits in plus minus. So where is their value? Which means you look at all your role guys, and I'll forget about the defense, but the Christian Fischers, you look at the Rasmussens, he's plus 11. You look at the guys that are supposed to be Compher playing a lot of money, who's a plus player. Kopp's a plus player, right? Now, being able to do it. And why does Rasmussen get the money and stuff like this? What the sleeping giant that Spenny has addressed is that you don't want to play this team as they're getting, they're what do we always hear? Oh, the teams that are fighting are already in playoff mode. That's what this team is in. They're already in playoff mode. And you don't want to play a team like this that has balance, right? Balanced scoring. Because what does playoffs come down to? It comes down to health, goaltending, and getting the bounce. Well, these guys know how to get the bounce at different times and stepping up. So the sleeping giant, to your point of how Stevie built Tampa, is building the foundation with solid players that are figuring out how to play together.
Yes.
Now, tonight's a great test. Stanley Cup champion, former team, Antti Ranta, McKinnon, Makar. I mean, these guys are the top of the league, the best of the best, arguably one of the teams that come out of the West. No better time than now, but you're embracing it.
Yes. It is going to be must watch tonight. And for everybody who's going there, I hope that you guys all have a blast. I unfortunately will not be. But you know what? I will certainly be tuning in because it is a huge game. And one thing that you can point to, too, from last year to this year is that I think the most impressive thing about this team is their offense is now elite. They're 6th in the NHL in goal scoring. They certainly haven't been that high up in a long, long time, and that speaks to, obviously, Steve Yzerman. You always bring back the Alex DeBrincat signing, and he's played as good of hockey as he's ever played in his career, and he's doing it on a winning team, and I think that's helped a guy like Larkin have the best season of his career, at least on pace for. It's helped a guy like Lucas Raymond have the best season of his career, at least for what he's on pace for, and then even other guys like Daniel Sprong is probably going to set his career high in points. JT Compher is playing some of the best hockey of his career, and obviously you go to a guy like Mo Seider, who is a staple, who is going to be one of the best defensemen in the league for a long, long time. And that's one of the things that I love to see is that guys that Steve Yzerman brought in, whether it's a star like Alex DeBrincat, whether it's role players like Sprong or Compher, all of them you can say definitively are playing either definitely the best or some of the best hockey of their career in this Red Wings situation. And now they're sitting pretty, at least in terms of fighting for a playoff spot. And this is the type of season that I think we were all looking to see out of them. Make the playoffs. That's all we really needed. And some of Steve Yzerman's moves have been the catalyst in not just from the guys that he brought in, but from the guys that those guys helped make better. And also, I forgot to even mention him. I know your guy, Spenny, Michael Rasmussen, just got locked up to a long-term deal. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing about Rasmussen, which he's been healthy this year, which has been great. Last season, and I mentioned it on Wake Up Woodward, when Michael Rasmussen was in the lineup last year, they were a playoff team. When he wasn't, the Red Wings were a bottom feeder. I'm not saying it was all because of Michael Rasmussen.
No,
I'm just saying,
who's thinking right along your thought process?
Yeah.
Who just proved that that you're right?
Yeah.
Steve Yzerman just told
you
you're right by giving him a 4-year contract deal. Michael Rasmussen is your part of your third line, part of your success. I see him right now raising a cup and hopefully 3 or 4 years.
Ooh.
No, you know what else is? You know what else is about? So we're talking about the scoring and everything. When you talk about scoring, you have to go offense. I did a quick add up of 6 guys. You have over 30 goals from your defensive core, led by Jake Wallen with 11, which means that you saw Sherratt the other night in overtime and stuff like that. It's balanced contribution from all throughout the lineup. You don't just have to rely on the Dylan Larkins and the DeBrincats and the Raymonds and the Kanes and stuff like that. Now, back like when our day, we had the Yzermans and the Federals and the Shanahans and stuff. You rely on them 7 or 8 out of 10 games. But there's going to be those 2 games where, for whatever reason, that they don't have it or they get shut down or whatever, and that's when it's time for the other guys to step up. The most important part between then is I'm looking at Michael Rasmussen at a +11. I'm looking at Christian Fischer at a +10. These are your checking guys. That's what you want because they're playing all the toughest minutes, and that tells me a lot more when I look at the whole numbers. You just see numbers going down, so everybody's contributing.
Yeah. And even Olli Mata leads the team in plus-minus at +13, which is... I get it. There's a lot of context to that. I'm not saying that Olli Mata is a world... I mean, that's why plus-minus is an imperfect stat. I think I'm putting that nicely. But I'm just pointing it out. That's all.
But here's the one thing about... Yes, it's not the end-all, be-all, but the balance over the duration of games, now that we're 50 games in, it gives you... You can move at 5 either way. You know what I'm saying? But it gives you an idea about when this guy's on the ice. Is there, susceptibility to being scored against?
Yes, and one person that I didn't bring up, although you guys kind of touched on it, and I know you guys talked about him a lot on a previous show, Patrick Kane. 23 points in 24 games. He has really helped this team as well. And honestly, and I understand that he's obviously not prime Patrick Kane because prime Patrick Kane is an all-time great. But when you look at how his numbers stack up versus even some of his prime seasons, he's playing borderline Patrick Kane hockey, at least in terms of production. And it's obviously paid big time dividends with the Detroit Red Wings and is going to pay big time dividends even more in the playoffs, because ain't too many people in the NHL that have more playoff experience and big playoff moments than Patrick Kane. So shout out to him as well. I've always been, and another thing that Red Wings fans are going to kill me for, I've always been a big Patrick Kane guy just because I recognize how great he was and how great the Chicago Blackhawks were in the 2010s. As much as I didn't like it, they were a bit of a dynasty of themselves, and now he's ours, and now he's playing very, very well. So,
Sam, no one's going to get mad at you when you explain that you have a 30,000-foot view. You're a hockey fan. You like talent. You like other teams. You don't have that die-hard. You're right. The Red Wings aren't like the Michigan Wolverines to you, right? Where other people that's where you get it. Which everything you're saying is absolutely true about the type of player. And the fact is that now he's here doing those things for us, and he's only getting better. The number one with him is health, and the fact is you listen to him, you look at him, because he's been a big part of the maturity in that locker room, and that's what I've seen with the rest of the guys. And that's sort of the move I'm looking for. Not more of the splash, but who's going to be a positive influence that can play, obviously, some minutes, and I'm looking at a veteran defenseman, but can bring some calm. You know, like a guy that comes to mind, right, that you're not going to get, but an Ian Cole. Do you know that name, Ian Cole? Spenny?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Solid, you know, could play 4 or 5 defensemen, lug minutes, tough guy. I think DeBrincat got in a fight with him a couple weeks ago or whatever like this. But just like a guy like that's been around, maybe a guy that's got a cup. So unless a big splash is there, that's gonna not hurt you moving forward. But yeah, slowly but surely developing into this sleeping giant and developing into this playoff style team.